What is dukkha? Dukkha is a term that the Buddha used to describe a quality of life, of existence that is so pervasive, so everywhere. And ironically, one that we are very much desensitized from, if I may put it that way, in the sense that it's almost like you have your hair burning mildly in a way that it's not a whole on fire, but or let's say you're exposed to heat or cold or some uncomfortable state, but for some reasons, and I'll mention a few, the person is not able to fully grasp, fully understand and feel that painful state of dukkha. There are many reasons for it. From day one on this planet, we are in a way desensitized from feeling pain, from feeling suffering, from being dissatisfied. One of the major ways that this is done is through pleasures, distractions. You feel uncomfortable, you don't feel well. Oh, maybe you can eat something, maybe you can drink something, maybe you can talk to someone, maybe you can do something or go somewhere. So there are many ways that we, in a way, try to numb, quiet and dull that constant underlying fire of dukkha, of dissatisfaction, of pain. And this is something that anyone can relate to. And you may even have this reaction of, so what's new about that? It's of course we know there is suffering in life, that there is pain, that we all experience it. But unfortunately, we think we do, but we don't. We do know how it feels, of course. We're very familiar with the feeling, but we don't necessarily connect the dots. And what's really amazing about the teachings of the Buddha is that if you were to think of it in terms of a problem and a solution, dukkha would be the problem. But there is no solution unless the person understands the problem. As the saying goes, knowing what the problem is, halfway the solution is already there. So the Buddha teaches us that in life there are these essential characteristics, parts of existence that we need to really train ourselves to be able to see and understand, because we tend to run away from them. And the solution to that problem, of course, is in the understanding that that's a problem. And the solution would be nibbana, the state of unconditional happiness, unconditional joy, unconditional contentedness, unconditional peace. So anyone who is not able to say, yes, I'm in a constant state of unconditional joy or peaceful mind or satisfaction, that person is in the land of dukkha. That person is experiencing dukkha constantly. So this practice is one where we learn the skills to constantly clean our mind, clean our attention, clean up our attention, so that we come to see what's really going on, what exactly is that we're experiencing, and why is there this constant state of unhappiness, this constant race from one thing to another. We go from fulfilling one need or desire to another, and yet I have yet to meet a human being who is in that state of gratitude, joy, peace of mind. There is no longing, there is no desire, there is no fire that they are after to put out or start. There's always this sense of, if only I could get that thing, or if only I get to complete this project, or if only I can attain this state of being, let's say, or having or doing, then I'll be good to go. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. You look around, you'll find person after person after person who is in that state of not good enoughness. There is always something in their lives that they need to have or do or be so that they can be happy, so that they can feel happiness in their minds. They're in the pursuit of that. We're all in the pursuit of happiness. We want to be happy. We want to feel good. The good feeling is what we're after. What the Dhamma teaches us is that those good feelings that we tend to get through satisfying our senses, such as having good food or being in a comfortable physical state, not too cold, not too hot, what we're wearing, what we're seeing, what we're hearing, relationships, how we feel about ourselves, are our loved ones, are we the object of their attention all the time? Are conditions comfortable? So we all want to feel comfortable. But the thing is that the world, our existence, is marked by this thing that the Buddha also named as an essential, as an undeniable fact of life, and that is anicca, the fact that nothing lasts, the fact that everything is conditional, and that there is no experience that you can pretty much replicate. You can have the exact same of, whether it's a food that you made, whether it's a conversation you had with someone, whether it's an experience you had, something you felt, something you thought, anything, something you witnessed, you saw and heard, and nothing really in this world is static. So everything is moving, everything is changing, everything is made of other parts. There's so many moving pieces that it's really this constant movement of everything. Your body, your looks, your skin, your how you feel in your stomach, how you slept, what you ate, or what this person said, what you paid attention to, and how that affected you. So we are constantly working with, or usually against, a plethora of conditions, things that are constantly changing and are dependent on other things. And what the practice teaches us is to pay attention with mindfulness and right information, which the Dhamma provides us, to be able to really see that this is a losing battle, that the actual path towards happiness is not in the fulfilling of our pleasures, in the fulfilling of our sense desires, in other words, so that we feel pleasant feelings, but it's actually to go really in and try to courageously educate ourselves, because we're not educated. As much as we would think that, I can bring my own example. I used to go to university. I had undergraduate degrees, I had graduate degrees. I thought I was in higher education. I was getting this training in the field, in academia specifically. But when it came to the real thing, to be happy, to be well, when I was facing those difficult times, physical and emotional pain, none of my tools from the university were helping. I was helpless until I came to the Dhamma. And I always say my true education began when I was introduced to the Dhamma, the true education system, which really teaches you how the world works, how your mind works, and to begin to understand why we suffer, to really become empowered, because otherwise we are slaves of our desires. We blindly believe that if only I were to fulfill, if only I were to follow the script of how people tend to normally live. You go to school, and then university, and then you get a job, and then you get married, and then you have kids, and then you raise your kids, and then you buy a house, a car, you change your job, or you get a bigger house, a bigger car, you travel, you get old in the meantime, of course, if you're lucky, you don't get sick, your loved ones don't die, eventually you get old, and then you die. So why? What's the meaning? What's the point? What's the purpose? Why? So the Dhamma really forces us to not run away from that question why, and truly face dukkha, face suffering, face dissatisfaction. And it doesn't have to necessarily be grand things that we usually force us to pay attention and to really acknowledge that there is this thing called death, that the body is not always in a healthy state, that we will lose our loved ones, we will lose our wealth, our health, and our own lives. But loss is not just that. If that wasn't enough, every moment there is loss, because our feelings constantly change. They are shaped by what we pay attention to, how we perceive things, how we translate them in our minds, and then the body of course feels every thought, every pattern of thought. And there is this constant loss of, our moods change constantly, our relational quality constantly changes. There's this thing turning into otherwiseness. So it's really difficult to even capture this state of change, because it's so fast, and language is actually one of the cover-ups, if you will, one of the ways that we mask the anicca quality of everything by nouns and adjectives tend to give you the sense of permanence. But I always say it's, think of yourself as a verb, and everything around you as a verb. When you look at a sunset or a sunrise, or you just observe the clouds, how you will see how they're always moving. There's no cloud as such. It's a verb. They're nouns. They're constantly flowing and moving and changing. So with this anicca quality of life, because of our misunderstanding, because of this default perception in us that things are supposed to be permanent, we tend to feel dukkha, which is this sense of things not being good enough, things never fitting our desires, never being the way we would like them to be, because they constantly change. So it's not like nature is out there against us, that the sun or the moon or the body or our loved ones, they're after us. It's not personal. Deep down, ultimately, what one also comes to realize is that it's not personal. The leaf that falls off the tree doesn't experience dukkha, doesn't fight the tree and, why is it that I have to die? Why is it that I, my soft and gentle and beautiful color and texture is now gone? No, it's a natural process. It's a law. It's not personal. So it is because of our ignorance, because of our misunderstanding of life, that we come to suffer, that we come to experience dukkha every single moment, and especially when it comes to big losses like loved ones, health, wealth, and of course our own life. So the Dhamma encourages us to be brave and not be afraid of talking about the suffering, not in a way as to make you even, not to fan the flames of the pain, of the suffering, but to truly understand why. Why is it that I'm never fulfilled? Why is it that when I ordered that thing on Amazon, I'm so excited, I'm so looking forward to getting that thing, and then as I anticipate its arrival, I'm checking the mail, I'm checking the email, And then, yes, now it arrives. I go and I open the package. There's this rush of dopamine hormones. There's this firework in the brain. Pleasant feelings, chemicals are released, and the dust settles. And then there is now another desire. Oh, I think I should also get that other thing. And then I'll probably be able to maintain this good feeling, which is what we're after, to maintain a good state of mind, to feel good all the time. But the problem is that we are looking at the wrong place to fulfill that intention of ours, and that is being able to see the difference between pleasure and happiness. And happiness is an inside job. Pleasure is usually outward oriented. And there's so many people who look at their children, look at their spouse or family members or country or job to make them happy. They never succeed. They're always disappointed sooner or later. And that is why people who actually do go inside and begin to look for the answers within, they will be usually seen by others as losers in some shape or form, or people who don't get it, or they're really denying life, or they're naive. They don't know what they do. That type of attitude, and that's something that one should never, never eat the bait. In other words, never give in to, because that comes from a state of misunderstanding. And you could think of dukkha also. In the case of drugs, they say, let's say this drug or that drug is a gateway drug. In other words, it opens up the gates for more intense or more worse types of addictions. Now, if you were to apply to that concept to dukkha, you could say that dukkha is the gateway pain. In other words, it's the gateway to nibbana, because that pain is what's going to, in a way, force us to not be children anymore, not run away from suffering, because there's so much treasure waiting for us. And it's a stepping stone, so one should never be afraid of pain. And the Dhamma is so beautiful, because there is also that misunderstanding that it's all about pain and doom and gloom, and nothing could be further from the truth. It's about release, it's about happiness. But there is no happiness unless we do understand where is the unhappiness coming from. It's like the modern mainstream medicine unfortunate situation where people go to the doctor with some type of pain, and the doctor looks at their symptoms and tries to numb the symptoms, but never talks to them about the cause, the root, where the problem came from. That is why in our world today we're so lacking in healing, because we give in to that unwholesome approach of looking only at the surface and never going beneath. And we don't believe that it is possible to be happy, it is possible to be joyful, content. It is possible to no longer be burning with desire and longing and a state of unfulfillment, state of starvation, because that's what it is. Like in the dietary world, a lot of us eat food that we think is healthy, it's good for us, but we don't really understand usually what it is that the body needs. And so we're giving it some food, but is it actually nourishing the body? Is it fulfilling its need fully? Now, thankfully, when it comes to the mind, it is possible to get to that state where you no longer where you're no longer a slave to conditions, because with the body, of course, no matter how well we look after it, there is going to be disease, there is going to be discomfort, there are going to be unpleasant feelings that we will experience, and there is no way around it. And that's why the Buddha says we are struck by two poisoned arrows. One the body, one the mind. The body is one where if you're born, it's like a car. You will drive it for however long you're able to, and of course at some point it'll degenerate, it'll decay, it'll not function so well, and then you'll have to basically no longer, you will no longer have it, it won't function. But the beauty of the Dhamma is also in that with the mind there is this beautiful arsenal of tools that the Buddha gives us to train and cultivate the mind, just like you would cultivate the soil, and then that's how the seed of wisdom will grow. And we all have that, and that is what the Buddha calls wise radical attention. Attention. Where is my attention? It all comes down to that. So again, in the world, so many people are distracted. They put their attention on the wrong things, pleasures, outward, outside, racing like the hamster in the wheel, constantly racing after things and never really being gratified and satiated, versus going in and applying the tools that the Dhamma teaches us, and really beginning to take charge of our lives. Talk about empowerment. So part of the work then is to train ourselves to be able to recognize dukkha, which, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are so desensitized from recognizing due to all the numbing and dulling, distracting ways of coping with it that we have been conditioned and taught to use. It has come to a point where we really have to put in a lot of effort to be able to see dukkha, to be able to recognize it. And one way we can do this is checking in with ourselves, the body, the brain, everything. The body includes everything, and to see if there is tension anywhere in the body. So that would tell us that there is dissatisfaction. So that would be probably perhaps the lightest shade of dukkha, where we physically know that there is tension. There is a state of tension in the body. That means there is agitation in the mind, because think of a quiet, calm lake, the surface. It's so quiet, it's so serene. And then imagine you're standing by the bank of that lake, and then you throw a bunch of rocks into the lake. It will disturb the surface, it will agitate the lake. So that's how it works, the same way with the mind, but it's really empowering and helpful to be able to recognize that there is tension. Okay, there is dukkha, there is a state of dissatisfaction. And in the beginning it can be difficult to really identify. But as we train ourselves, we can ask the question, so what are the causes? What are the conditions? Because everything is conditioned, everything is conditional. Everything is dependent on other things. Dukkha doesn't just transpire out of the blue. It is a state that we can deeply understand as to how it comes to be. And that is something that naturally takes our attention back to ourselves, back to our physical, mental, emotional, psychological state, in the position of the observer. So the invitation here is not to get in there like an investigator and begin to probe and dig and ask, analyze. No, that's not the question. What we want to do is to not get into the narrative as much as to really be able to recognize states of tension versus states of calm and quietude and stillness, and just to acclimate ourselves through that mental process of appreciation of dukkha, where you begin to truly discern that word in terms of your own experience. Now it no longer is a word, but something that you know viscerally. You know how it feels. Because I think this is so key today in the world, because there's so much going on. You know, one could say every moment of history is a moment where there is a lot going on. Yes, so that means it is not truly fair for us to say, oh, you know, there's this happening in the world, there's that happening, there is war, there is trafficking, there is abuse, there is violence, there is aggression, there is so much pain, so much illness, so much ignorance, and loved ones around you. You see people making wrong choices, and naturally there is this urge to reach out and tell them and guide them, help them see what's really going on, or share your wisdom and understanding and knowledge. But sooner or later you will realize that that's not a war of yours. There's so many fronts that we have put ourselves into that do not belong to us. If one truly understands and begins to appreciate dukkha, this state of dissatisfaction, constant, this state of sense of loss every time you are in such a good mood and then something happens, it changes. You look at this person with such sweet and kind and loving eyes, and then they did something or something happened, their attitude towards you changed, or your attitude towards them changed. So there's loss and gain, loss and gain, loss and gain. So pain and pleasure, ultimately disappointment. You can't change people, you can't control them, you can't tell them what to do. So you know, all the fights and causes and noble pursuits out there that you are pulled into, ultimately you'll realize that it's futile, because first of all, they're so big, there's so many moving pieces, there's no way in the world you can control those countless conditions. It's pathetic to truly understand that, and then develop compassion towards yourself, which naturally will arise when you see how naive you have been to assume that those battles would be possible to win. And it's humbling. It really forces you to again and again come back to yourself, because please remember, the world is what you pay attention to. The world is not all the suffering of those people around you and those you know and those you don't know. The world is what you pay attention to. That is your world. Remember, the Buddha says the world is our 6 senses. What you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you touch, what you smell, and what you think. That's your world. And that's where you have control over. And that's the amazing power that this teaching, that this true education provides us with. Because we begin to understand that we need to come back home, to come back to our own domain, to come back to the world that is coming in, being processed through the 6 senses, and to truly begin to take charge and make wise decisions as to what we want to come in and what we don't want to come in. So the doors, we begin to guard and understand the value of it, of course, in the first place, and then to apply, to truly protect ourselves and to create our world. So the world is not out there. The world is the creation of our 6 senses, and we are in charge through our wise attention. So that's what we train. The Buddha says there's nothing as terrible to lose as one's wisdom, one's attention, wise attention. So that is why understanding dukkha becomes the entryway into deep understanding of ourselves, the people around us, and it allows us to truly taste happiness by our own creation. And again, talk about empowerment and independence, autonomy. Because again and again I come across people who look at other people in their lives, loved ones, and whether consciously or by default, functioning through the assumption that they are supposed to make them happy. A losing battle, because you are not the captain of someone else's life ship. Neither are they the captain of your ship.